stick collar. If yours breaks, I mean, it's just the way it is. They're not meant to last forever.
You take a small dead blow hammer, brace it,
and it just goes on.
Pops right on. Won't come off ever.
Until it breaks.
Until you pull it off.
You go ahead and put the dipstick tube back in, or the dipstick back in. What about the overflow line?
Well, what we're gonna do is pull this off. Sorry again. Pull this off at the injector. Put it back on this side, and then prime the pump. And we've got a small adapter for a Mighty Vac that's just a little needle point, but it does have a hole in it.
So really fine point.
We're just gonna hook this here, and note that all the lines are still hooked up to the pump. Everything's normal. This pump can even be empty, and you'll still prime the pump. So there's already fuel in there, but that's confusing. But
so we're looking for fuel coming into this clear line. We're pulling a vacuum. You'll start to see it gurgle here soon.
You want to note that your gauge drops as fuel comes into the pump to displace the vacuum. And if you're doing this for longer than we're doing this on this video, then you've probably got a problem with the head seal, because it will not prime if you have a bad head seal. That's another indicator that you have a problem with the head seal.
So starting to get some gurgling here. It's a pretty low volume vacuum pump, so it's going to take a while to fill up the whole internal cavity of the injection pump.
There we go.
And we're starting to get a good column. Kind of shake the car, bouncing up and down on it. You can.
That's it. That's fully primed.
So
basically, more or less.
Yeah,
I mean,
see a few.
You can sit here for a couple days waiting for those bubbles to come out, but they're really never going to go away. So just release the vacuum.
Detach the line right there. Stick it back on the number 4 injector, which is the one furthest from the timing belt.
Now it's also a good idea at this point to run the motor over a couple turns to make sure that you haven't dropped that shim and it's binding up in the pump. I mean, this is just a safety precaution, but obviously if you can't turn the engine over, then you have a problem. Make sure it's not in gear. It'll usually, bind up.
Something won't turn
It'll bind up immediately if you have a problem. This was a successful install. That's just compression that we're getting.
So, yeah, nothing's stopping the engine from turning over.
All right, we're ready to start the car. So we'll just remove all the tools and stuff from this handy little area. Retaining our 17 that we're going to need for priming the lines. So Grant, if you would, and I'm just gonna signal to you. I'll stand right here, and when I go like this, just don't stop cranking, and then I'll tell you to crank again. So I'm just gonna pick two.
Pick 2 lines, crack them open.
He's gonna crank it.
We're just looking for fuel shooting out.
On the stop.
Fuel spurting out of the
fuel
injector
at these
lines. So we're going to snug them back down. And then you're going to break open the 2 that you didn't mess with the first time.
Okay, crank it, but don't let the engine start.
And now we're seeing a little bit of fuel at both of those.
It's trying to start, so I'm going to lock these down.
The second set.
It might run a little rough at first. It's probably a little air left in this guy, but it'll smooth out in a second, and then we can hook up VAGCOM and look at the IQ. Go ahead and fire it up.
You always want to be ready to shut it back down if it accelerates.
Not leaking. Not leaking. Not leaking. Not leaking. Not leaking. Okay, well I'm gonna take some time to get the VAGCOM fired up.
Okay, so we'll be back and show you how to set it up in VAGCOM.